If you're a person who's been suffering from superhero fatigue, then boy, have I got the movie for you. Supergirl is the second theatrical film in the newly created DCU and follows the character of Kara Zor-El, Superman's cousin who briefly appeared in the previous film. She gets her powers from yellow suns, just like Superman, so she spends her days mostly in solar systems with red suns. That way, she can be much more underpowered and have the ability to get drunk and waste her days away with her dog, Crypto. However, when a little girl whose family was murdered is asking for help in her quest for vengeance, Kara reluctantly feels the call to help and becomes someone worthy of the moniker of Supergirl. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm the guy with no name. Thanks for stopping by. If you enjoy this video and want to help me reach my goal of 500 subscribers, then please like and subscribe. That'd be much appreciated. Supergirl was directed by Craig Gillespie and stars Millie Alcock as Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl, Eve Ridley as Ruthie, the girl who is seeking vengeance against the leader of the brigands, Matthias Schoenaerts as Krim, the murderous brigand leader, and Jason Momoa as Lobo, a bounty hunter whose quarry is one of the members of the brigands. So like I alluded to earlier, the DCU is still in its infancy as far as movie franchises go. I guess technically the first installments of the DCU now are the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker Season 1, but initially those were a part of the DCEU, and James Gunn just plucked them out and put them here. But really the first series and movies in the DCU were Creature Commandos, the animated series, Peacemaker Season 2, Superman, and now Supergirl. But let's take Supergirl out for a second. I feel like since before Supergirl anyway, all the shows and movies in the DCU had a certain level of quality, and I appreciated that level of quality. I personally have liked everything so far, and I got to attribute that at least somewhat to James Gunn's approach. I feel like he's learned from the mistakes of the MCU, and he doesn't go around announcing all these different cool sounding projects that some pan out, some don't. Instead, they don't really announce or even go forward with projects until they've kind of ironed out the details and the ideas and the script is at a good spot. And, you know, it's great, especially as a fan, not getting let down by announcements that end up not, you know, happening. Blade. The real question is, how does Supergirl compare to the rest of the DCU? And I will say, I'm gonna be honest, Supergirl is easily the worst in quality as far as everything the DCU has to offer thus far. And it does bum me out to say that because I know some people didn't like Superman, but I liked it quite a bit. You know, I thought it was a good time, and it kind of set up the universe well to where I was very excited for what was going to come next. And I think even before that movie, before the movie came out, they said they were going to do a Supergirl movie too. And I was all for it at the end of the day. Then, and spoiler if you haven't seen Superman, but Supergirl does have a cameo in that, and it made me less excited for the Supergirl movie because I thought she was pretty annoying. Maybe there's some comic precedence for her acting that way, but it was not what I expected. And yeah, since then, they had released multiple trailers. I felt like one of them was pretty good, the others not so much, so I really went into this tempering my expectations quite a bit, while still being hopeful that it would be good. I don't want to paint it with too broad a brush though, because it's not all bad, it's not a horrible movie, but when I think about it, I can almost cut the movie directly in half and say that the first half is really not that good, but the second half was a marked improvement. The first half, for whatever reason, was like a Guardians of the Galaxy Thor Ragnarok ripoff, like a knockoff, and it just felt like it was trying to copy that, trying too hard. None of the jokes landed for me in the first half at all. I don't think I even smiled at any of them. Whereas in the second half, some of them did land a little bit. And I feel like the first half too really was like a cookie cutter superhero movie, and it was really predictable. So I don't know, I just found myself being ultimately bored in the first half. But not any spoilers, but if you've watched any of the trailers, there's some flashbacks to Kara on Krypton, and it really gets into that kind of at the midway point. And from then on, I was much more engaged and entertained in the movie. And I don't know, it's like two different people wrote the script. The directing was fine. I didn't feel like it was anything to write home about, but you know, Craig Gillespie, I think he didn't do a great job or a bad job. So it was almost like forgettable in a way. As far as the casting goes, Millie Alcock I thought was well cast as Supergirl. It's not her fault that I find the character to ultimately be annoying. Like I said, it does explore her annoyingness and it doesn't necessarily make the case that she's not annoying. It more explains why she is the way she is, and also she does mature somewhat in this, which was much appreciated. But yeah, at the end of the day, the actress didn't make the character decisions or the story decisions. It's just her job to be the character that's written, and that's what she did. The little girl, I was pretty impressed. You know, whenever you have younger actors or actresses, you always kind of assume they're not going to be that great. But I thought she did pretty well with what she was given, and she had some clunky dialogue to deliver, but she did the best she could. And the villain also, I thought he was going to be like a generic, forgettable MCU villain. But take your run-of-the-mill, generic, forgettable MCU villain and just bump it up a little bit, and that's where he was. And honestly, I think he did the best he could, and he was pretty creepy at the end of the day. And then finally, Jason Momoa as Lobo. You know, I gotta be honest. So when I heard he was cast as Lobo, he'd already been, I think, a lot of fan dream casting as a Lobo. So I think a lot of people, myself included, were excited, and it was great seeing him. At the same time, I don't necessarily watch that performance. There's not a lot to do, but I don't watch that performance and go, oh, he was born to play Lobo. That was, no one else can play Lobo. I mean, he does well, but it's nothing that's like, wow, he knocked that out of the park. And I know that all movies rely on coincidences and conveniences from time to time in order to actually make the story happen, but boy, does this movie rely on coincidences and conveniences. Like, that's pretty much the whole of the plot, really, if you think about it. I just kept noticing that, and I'm like, man, that's a coincidence, that's a coincidence, that's a coincidence. These people just happen to interact at the exact same time, right when needed. There's also something, I'm going to be very vague, but when the brigands are first introduced, there's something that the family of the girl does, and in my head, I was like, wait, if they could do that the whole time, why didn't they do that like 10 minutes ago? And maybe if you watch the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it was kind of a big plot hole that had me confused. Like I said, though, somewhere in the midway point, the story does get a bit deeper and finally turn into more of a character study versus just feeling like a shallow, okay, here's another superhero movie. And then finally the ending, when you think about it, it's fairly deep. I'm not going to get into anything once again, but I feel like it was poorly executed, and the deepness of it could go over a lot of people's heads. In the hands of a better filmmaker, I think it could have been executed much better. Oh, one other thing I gotta mention though is Crypto, and I love him again here. He's great. Only thing is, and I get they had to do CGI for obviously the flying and the biting and stuff like that, but too, the CGI at times with Crypto in particular, you can tell it's a CGI dog, and it kind of sucks because he's doing cute things, but I kept feeling like, man, I would probably laugh at this if this was a real dog, but like rolling around in the grass or just being cute. But it's really hard to feel as much as I would be feeling, because I know it's a CGI animal, and I don't know, I feel like they could have done a bit more work. But that goes back to Superman as well. Now, what does this mean for Supergirl? What if there's a lot of people who agree with me? I make it a point to not look at other reviews, but after seeing this movie and kind of feeling the reactions in the audience that I was in, I could see a lot of people thinking it's not that great and at best mediocre. But I think a lot of people are blowing this out of proportion, that if Supergirl bombs at the box office and or bombs critically, then the DCU is basically dead. It's finished. And I mean, that's a huge overreaction, because first of all, this is a smaller movie. No one's expecting this to make as much as Superman or be as good as Superman, to be honest. I don't think anybody is. And then on top of that, it's kind of its own side story anyway. Like, it's presented as, here's this little, side quest that Kara went on that nobody knows about. Superman, nobody, and it only takes place over like a few days anyway. So it's really not, it was never meant to be a consequential movie. The real problem would be if, I believe Lanterns is next. If Lanterns doesn't do very well, if not a lot of people watch it or they don't like it, Superman 2 doesn't do well, and Clayface doesn't do well, then we have a problem. Then suddenly it's like, oh shoot, this is going downhill really fast. As far as rating it goes, like I said, it's not a bad movie, so I'm not going to rate it bad, but I probably got to say it's not worth seeing unless you have an extra fistful of dollars. I do want to add though that if you're a huge DCU fan, and heck, if you love the character of Supergirl and like how the character was represented in Superman, and maybe you know that going into this, it is going to kind of cut through that facade a little bit and get more deep into the character, or maybe you want to be as prepared as possible for Superman 2, then maybe this is worth seeing. Who knows? You know you better than I do, but anyway, I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you want to check out any of my other content, I got a review recently up of Toy Story 5. Appreciate you all. This is the guy with no name, signing off.